All right, hello everyone. I'm going to go ahead and start, but first I'm going to make an announcement over on the original Big Discussions 76 channel in case anyone over there wants to come over and listen to this discussion. Give me 1 second, actually more than a second. Okay, so we are live. Snuggles, drop the link to what? What are you referring to? Everyone, hold on for a second, all right? All right, everyone, bear with me. I'll be back with you shortly. Everyone, I'll be back with you shortly. Hey, everyone. For those of you coming in, please hit the like button. I'll be back with you shortly. Happy Easter, by the way. All right, just hit that like button. I appreciate those who already have. Give me a few more minutes. All right, everyone. Sorry about that. Snuggles, I'm not agitated, but was coordinating something here and just had to make sure everything was copacetic, as we would say in the 90s. All right, let me make the announcement over on the original Big Discussions 76 channel, and I will get this going. All right. Snuggles just shared some eyeballs there. All right, let me switch this up. Hey, Bernard and Angry Man. I'm sorry. Let me. I like saying Valdez more than I like saying Angry Man. Uh, uh, Bernard and Valdez, they've done that before. They've put their avatars on before they started, or even during midstream. Anyway, let's see. All right, that was shared over there. So I'm going to play the intro, and then I will jump in. We're going to cover. I'm going to throw a. Well, this isn't a scientific word, but it's used in science writing. We're going to cover a myriad of topics today. So I'm going to play the intro, and I will see you guys on the other side. Please hit the like button. I'll throw this in the chat early. I don't have a super chat over here, but if anyone wants to make a donation by Cash App or PayPal, that is here. You guys are under no pressure to do that. In anything people donate, I'm always appreciative of it. So I'm going to play the intro. I was going to update this, but time just got away as it always does. All right, I'll see you guys on the other side. Oh, darn it, that's the wrong intro. So let me load it up. How's your Sunday going out there? I don't know if I don't know how many of my viewers practice Christianity. Um, I know Christianity and the Black Church are under scrutiny these days. But how's your Sunday going out there? It's a chilly Sunday here in the DMV. I watched Easter service online. But let me know how your Sunday is going out there. I see a comment. Okay, Helmet. Helmet Chili says Sunday's going great. Cool. Yeah, we're going to cover a myriad of topics today, and I hope I don't bore people with my reading. But there are quite a few very interesting things happening in the science and technology world right now. And I'm going to try to capture everything. And then I'll drop the link if anyone wants to come up and say something or add something to what it is I read. Okay. Please excuse my image. Even though I have a hard connection, I have my Ethernet cable plugged in, which StreamYard recommends I'm getting my antenna thing and I'm down to 1 bar. So hopefully that subsides sooner than later. But I'm waiting for the intro to load. Kareem Austin, what's going on? Thank you for being here. Technology. Technology is good, guys, when it works. When it doesn't, not so much. Okay. All right, the intro is still loading. It's processing. Come on, StreamYard. Give me my good signal back. Okay, now I have 2 bars. And now I have, yeah, okay. I'm just waiting on this intro to load from my computer. Things have been moving kind of slowly today. I hope Russia hasn't okay, there we go. All right, guys, I'll see you on the other side of the intro and then we'll jump right in. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76, Science and Technology. First of all, please like this stream, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel. Well, as I said before, happy Easter, everyone, if you celebrate that. I'm going to cover a myriad of topics today. We're going to start with the contagion, and then we're going to end with the Twitter algorithm, because as you know, well, there are a bunch of science related things in the news right now, but that I could probably do a whole stream just on the Twitter algorithm and why it's such a big deal that Elon Musk wants to buy Twitter. But I think this open discussion with me giving the relevant topics of the day at the beginning and then letting you guys come in and talk about your observations and thoughts. I think this works out really well. I'm experimenting with this. So I decided to do that again for this stream. Just briefly, if you haven't, please consider signing up for the Big Words LLC newsletter. In addition to being a content creator on YouTube, I'm also a writer. This link is below in the description box. There is a greeting there, and then the subscription button is at the bottom. I promise I will not give your information away to a third party, but this is another strategic step in my journey, and I'm finishing up my book project right now. And this is going to tie everything together. I'm going to drop the link right there in the chat, and then I'm going to start being very ambitious today. Hopefully, I don't bore you guys, but there's a lot of interesting. There's a lot of interesting science and technology related news in the world today. And as I was approaching this stream, I was thinking, guys, this is important for those of us who care, for young people who have an aptitude for this stuff. It's important to pass this information on there. If you're thinking about investing money, this is important in that regard. And just our community, I want to keep this general, but for our community, we're behind in the STEMs. So this is important on numerous fronts, human health, and also just for general knowledge. Once again, I don't have a super chat over here. So if you want to make a donation to my Cash App or PayPal, that information is below in the description box. And it is here as well. I'll be throwing it in to break things up, to give my mouth a chance to get moisturized again. So, all right. The background is, well, you guys tell me what the background is. It's actually, well, we'll get to that. Let me jump right in because I have a lot to cover. So I'm going to start with a short discussion of the Contagion. Those of you who have been watching my community tab, I've been asking the question, is it still going on? And I'm not going to say what it is because the YouTube algorithm is looking for discussions of it. And they're being very choosy about who gets to talk about it and what is said about it. So I'm going to read this article just like last week. I'm going to speak in code for certain words. We're all intelligent people here, so you know what I am talking about. This article is entitled, "It's Not Over. The Contagion cases are on the rise again here in our constitutional republic." Okay, and this reads as follows. This was published on Friday by Laura Ungar. Yet again, the United States is struggling with what could be another contagion surge, with cases rising nationally and in most states after a 2-month decline. One big unknown, we don't know how high that mountain's going to grow, said Dr. Stuart Campbell Ray, an infectious disease expert at Johns Hopkins University. No one expects a peak nearly as high as the last one when the Contagion, the latest version of when the Contagion ripped through the population. But experts warn that the coming wave caused by a variation called BA2, that's thought to be about 30% more contagious, will wash across the nation. The worry that hospitalizations, which are already ticking up in some parts of the Northeast, will rise in a growing number of states in the coming weeks. And the case wave will be bigger than it looks, they say, because reported numbers are vast undercounts as more people test at home without reporting their infections or skip testing altogether. Let me make sure this is still broadcasting to YouTube. It is. All right. At the height of the previous surge, reported daily cases reached into the hundreds of thousands. As of Thursday, the 7-day rolling average for daily new cases rose to 39,521, up from 30,724 2 weeks earlier, according to data from Johns Hopkins collected by the Associated Press. Dr. Eric Topol, head of Scripps Research Translational Institute, said the numbers will likely keep growing until the surge reaches about a quarter height of the last monstrous one. The new variation may well have the same effect in the United States as it did in Israel, where it created a bump in the chart measuring cases, he said. Keeping the surge somewhat in check, experts said, is a high level of immunity in the United States from immunization or past affliction compared with early winter. But Ray said the United States could wind up looking like Europe, where the new variation surge was substantial in some places that had comparable levels of immunity. We could have a substantial surge here, he said. Both experts said the new variation will move through the country gradually. The Northeast has been hit hardest so far, with more than 90% of new afflictions caused by the new variation last week compared to 86% nationally. As of Thursday, the highest rates of cases per capita over the past 14 days were in Vermont, Rhode Island, Alaska, New York, and Massachusetts. In Washington, D.C., which also ranks in the top 10 for rates of new cases, Howard University announced it was moving most undergraduate classes online. Wow, for the rest of the semester because of a significant increase in positivity in the district and on campus. Now, keep in mind that for my current 9 to 5, we're set to start going back to the office in a limited capacity next week. So there's not a lot of talk of there's not a lot of talk of this, but there's a lot of conflicting things going on right now. Thank you for stopping through, Alonzo, the All-Star Advisor. If you're not subbed to Alonzo, you should do that. He's got a lot of valuable game on insurance and just financial health and financial money management in general. Okay. Some states, such as Rhode Island and New Hampshire, saw the average daily cases rise by more than 100% in 2 weeks, according to Johns Hopkins data. In New Hampshire, the increase in cases comes 2 weeks after the closure of all 11 state-managed immunization sites, and the governor is being pressured by some advocates to reverse course. Okay. Joseph Wendelken, spokesperson for the Rhode Island Department of Health, said the metric they are most focused on right now is hospitalizations, which remain relatively low. About 55 patients are hospitalized, compared with more than 600 at one point in the world event. Officials credit high immunization rates. State statistics show 99% of Rhode Island adults are at least partially immunized. At 48% have gotten the booster dose that scientists say is key in protecting against severe illness with the latest variation. Vermont also has relatively high levels of immunization and fewer patients in the hospital than during the height of the first wave. But Dr. Mark Levin, the health commissioner there, said hospitalizations and the numbers of patients in intensive care units are both up slightly, although deaths have not risen. Data from the CDC shows that new hospital admissions of patients confirmed with the contagion were up slightly in New England and the New York region. On the West Coast, modelers from Oregon Health and Science University are projecting a slight increase in hospitalizations, over the next 2 months in that state, where cases have also risen steeply. As the wave moves across the country, experts said states with low rates of immunization may face substantially more afflictions and severe cases that wind up in the hospital. Okay, we're almost done here, guys. Ray said government leaders must be careful to strike the right tone when talking to people about protecting themselves and others after restrictions have largely been lifted. Philadelphia recently became the first major U.S. city to reinstate its indoor facial covering mandate after a sharp increase in afflictions. But Vermont's Levine said there are no plans to bring back any of the restrictions that were imposed earlier during the world event. It's going to be hard to institute restrictive draconian measures, Ray said. Fortunately, we have some tools that we can use to mitigate risk. And so I hope that leaders will emphasize the importance for people to watch the numbers, be aware of risks, and consider taking precautions such as wearing masks and getting immunized and strengthened if they're not already. Lynn Richmond, a 59-year-old breast cancer survivor who lives in Silver Spring, Maryland, says she plans to get her second strengthening dose and keep wearing her mask in public as cases rise in her state in nearby Washington, D.C. I never really stopped wearing my mask. I've stayed ultra vigilant, she said. I feel like I've come this far. I don't want to get it. At the 250-bed New Hampshire Veterans Home in Tilton, staff are still wearing masks and social distancing. Veterans are allowed limited excursions to take places like Antique Race Car Museum and restaurants where they can have separate rooms and wait staff is masked. Almost done here, guys. Vigilance is a good strategy, experts said, because the contagion is constantly throwing curveballs. One of the latest, even more contagious than the subvariations of the latest variant in New York State, known as, they begin with a B, and scientists warn that new and potentially dangerous variations could arise at any time. We shouldn't be thinking it is over. Topol said we should still keep our guard up. All right, how many folks do I still have here? All right, so that's that. You guys are still commenting, so the stream must still be going. All right. Hello, Grandma. Thank you for stopping through. Happy Easter. We're just talking some science and technology news over here. Helmet Chili says, I think many more companies will be staying remote, and this can be good for investing in companies in the education space once again. All right. So, guys, that's our weekly update on the Contagion. So now that that's out of the way and the stream is still going, let's unless you have more comments or questions in the chat, let's move on to aerospace and astronomy. We're gonna do some astronomy now. Here on the channel, I want to cover the gamut, and I saw some interesting news about the James Webb Telescope. Grandma asks, have you heard about the new hepatitis? I think there's an article sitting in my Gmail account about that. I saved it. I'm not prepared to cover it right now, but I will throw that on the stack of things to cover grandma. Hepatitis, certainly, for those of you who don't know, that will affect your liver. And so that is certainly significant. Okay. Thank you, Grandma. Once again, guys, if you want to make a donation via Cash App or PayPal, that information is here. No, that's for my newsletter. I'm going to take a swig of my water here, and then we're going to discuss the James Webb Telescope. All right. I'm going to start with some pictures. So for those of you who have been following me, you know that I volunteered at the David M. Brown Arlington Planetarium here in Northern Virginia. It's before the world event. It was closed for renovations. I don't know if they've resumed. I had to take a step back from things because I had too much on my plate. But in volunteering here, I got a lot of exposure to the aerospace uh, and astronomy worlds, and I learned things that I never would have learned if I hadn't gotten involved. So that I've got content here now to share on that. For those of you who haven't watched it, I would encourage you to take a look back at my interview with Raphael Perrino. If you are interested in investing in aerospace, or if you know young people who have an aptitude for aerospace, physics, chemistry, those kinds of things, I will take a look at that interview. I will drop the link in the chat right now. It's right here. Two of the older telescopes that are that were in service or that will be out of service soon are Kepler. That's a picture of Kepler right there. And Hubble. That's a picture of Hubble. Hubble is orbiting above the Earth. I believe Kepler was a little further out, and these allow us to take pictures and images of other planets, stars, and solar systems. So that's the significance of this. So I'm going to read the article. If you're new coming in, please hit the like button. If you want to make a donation, my Cash App and PayPal are there. And please keep commenting. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. I think I'm one of the few channels. Well, there are a lot of science channels, but in the sphere in which I originated, I think I'm one of the few science content creators there. I'm looking to branch out and go mainstream if possible, but let me know what you think in the chat. Any engagement is good. So this is from NASA, and it reads, Webb telescope's coldest instrument reaches operating temperatures. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with out of space, there's a image of the James Webb telescope. I think this was supposed to go up a while ago, but when you're trying to build something new and novel and you're trying to launch it, there are typically technical things that are wrong with it, bugs that have to be worked out before it actually goes up into space. In this instance, this reads as follows. NASA's James Webb telescope will see the first galaxies to form after the Big Bang. But to do that, its instruments first need to get cold, really cold. On April 7th, Webb's mid-infrared instrument MIRI, a joint development by NASA and ESA, the European Space Agency, reached its final operating temperature below 7 kelvins, or minus 447 degrees Fahrenheit, or minus 266 degrees Celsius. So it's very, very cold in outer space, and the instrumentation needs to be able to work in those temperatures. Okay. The MIRI Cooler team has poured a lot of hard work into developing the procedure for the pinch point, said Alan Schneider, project manager for MIRI at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Southern California. The team was both excited and nervous going into the critical activity. In the end, it was a textbook execution of the procedure, and the cooler performance is even better than expected. The low temperature is necessary because all 4 of Webb's instruments detect infrared light wavelengths slightly longer than those that human eyes can see. Distant galaxies, stars hidden in cocoons of dust, and planets outside of our solar system all emit infrared light. But so do other warm objects, including Webb's own electronics and optics hardware. Cooling down the four instruments detectors and the surrounding hardware suppresses those infrared emissions. MIRI detects longer infrared wavelengths than the other three instruments, which means it needs to be even colder. So, guys and gals, this is all. What's the PayPal link? Oh, it's right here. Helmet Chili. Yeah, it's right there. PayPal me. Big Words LLC 76. So what this is talking about, this is all chemistry and physics. For those of you who have taken chemistry and physics, you may have learned something about the visible light spectrum, um, the infrared region. I'm sorry, the electromagnetic spectrum, the infrared region, X-rays, the ultraviolet region. That's what this is talking about. And if when you're learning chemistry and physics, if you don't know the applications for this stuff, you could sit there in class like I did in high school and wonder why we're learning this. But everything astronomy and astrophysics related, this is all the application of chemistry and physics. Because in order for these telescopes to look into other solar systems, they're reading light and they're reading fluorescences and they're reading those things. And that's how, if you think about the periodic table, and I hope this is correct, but pretty much every element has a unique fluorescence. Yeah, I think every element has a unique um uh a unique light signature, a unique fluorescence. So these telescopes, that's how they're able to identify what's in the other solar systems and on other planets and on other stars, because of these radiances, the colors that are given off. You guys see what I'm trying to say? Another reason Webb's detectors need to be cold is to suppress something called dark current, or electric current created by the vibrations of atoms in the detectors themselves. Dark current mimics a true signal in the detectors, giving the false impression that they have been hit by light from an external source. Those false signals can drown out the real signals astronomers want to find, since temperature is a measurement of how fast the atoms in the detector are vibrating. Reducing the temperature means less vibration, which in turn means less dark current. MIRI's ability to detect longer infrared wavelengths also makes it more sensitive to dark current, so it needs to be colder than the other instruments to fully remove that effect. For every degree the instrument temperature goes up, the dark current goes up by a factor of 10. Once MIRI reached a frigid 6.4 kelvins, scientists began a series of checks to make sure the detectors were operating as expected. Like a doctor searching for any signs of illness, the MIRI team looks at data describing the instrument's health, then gives the instrument a series of commands to see if it can execute tasks correctly. The milestone is a culmination of work by scientists and engineers at multiple institutions, in addition to JPL, including Northrop Grumman, which built the cryocooler, and NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, which oversaw the integration of MIRI and the cooler to the rest of the observatory. We spent years practicing for that moment, running through the commands and the checks that we did on MIRI, said Mike Ressler, project scientist for MIRI and at JPL. It was kind of like a movie script. Everything we were supposed to do was written down and rehearsed. When the test data rolled in, I was ecstatic to see it looked exactly as expected and that we have a healthy instrument. There are still more challenges that the team will have to face before MIRI can start its scientific mission. Now the instrument is at operating temperature. Team members will take test images of stars and other known objects that can be used for calibration and to check the instrument's operations and functionality. The team will conduct these preparations alongside calibration of the other three instruments, delivering Webb's first science images this summer. I am immensely proud to be a part of this group of highly motivated, enthusiastic scientists and engineers drawn from across Europe and the United States, said Alistair Glass, MIRI instrument scientist at the UK Astronomy Technology Centre in Edinburgh, Scotland. This period is our trial by fire, but it is already clear to me that the personal bonds and mutual respect we have built up over the past years is what will get us through the next few months to deliver a fantastic instrument to the worldwide astronomy community. More about the mission. The James Webb Space Telescope is an international program led by NASA with its partners ESA and the Canadian Space Agency. MIRI was developed through a 50-50 partnership between NASA and ESA. JPL leads the United States efforts for MIRI, and a multinational consortium of European astronomical institutes contributes for ESA. George Reich, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, with the University of Arizona is the MIRI science team leader. Gillian Wright is the MIRI European principal investigator. Laszlo Tomas with UK ATC manages the European consortium. The MIRI cryocooler development was led and managed by JPL in collaboration with Northrop Grumman in Redondo Beach, California, and NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. So, I actually passed by NASA Goddard when I go up to Maryland to do cigars with Officer Faulkner. So I passed by that on the Baltimore-Washington Parkway pretty frequently. Let's see. Professor Black Ops says, I have to jet out. 2 quick statements. Twitter is free, so people voluntarily give their information. So Twitter's algorithm should be private. He says other algorithms, facial recognition, loans, credit scores should be public due to bias in the programming. All right, thank you, Professor Black Ops. I may do a stream on that. That could be its own stream. What it is, how it works, why this is such a big deal. So thank you for weighing in there. All right, so that's that. I'm going to show some pictures. You know what? The way that article sounded, it sounded as though they might have already launched the telescope into orbit, but if they're working on that critical system, then I'm thinking that it's not there yet. Give me 1 second. Bear with me. James Webb Telescope. Let's see if it's already... Let's see. Just bear with me for a few minutes here. James Webb, yep, launch date. Thank you, Google. Thank you, Google. Yeah, it launched already. Duh. So it launched according to this. Yeah, it launched on Christmas Day. So it's already up there. So they must be working on this MIRI component here, and I guess they'll have to take it up, on a spacecraft and then install it. I'm not sure. I'm not in this community. If someone's watching this and knows, please reach out to me or leave a comment in the chat. But the James Webb Telescope is already up in space. Thank you, Professor Black Ops, for that comment. We appreciate your work. Okay. And again, guys, this is just getting this out there. There are whole communities who don't know that there is a James Webb telescope, or what it is, and that it exists, or why. So I have a few pictures here queued up. I'm going to show these to you guys just so you can get a feel for how big this thing is. When you see it in the image, you don't really know how big this thing is. So these are some images I used in my interview with Raphael Perrino. So that's uh, um, uh, a rendering or an image of the James Webb telescope there. And this shows crews working on it. So look at the size of those people versus the size of that detector, or that we'll call it a detector, or that dish. Look at the size of those people relative to the size of the dish. Look at, you could see a crane going in there to work on it. Look at the size of that telescope relative to those people going in there to work on that. It's pretty huge. There's another image. Look at the size of those technicians there relative to the size of that dish. So the thing is pretty massive. So that's an update on the James Webb telescope. So we're going to move on to talk about energy and what's happening with energy and our gas prices. So I think this is where people will really get excited about this stream. So if you notice the background of this stream, the background is actually this. Yeah. So who can tell me what that is? You know what? I'm going to drop I'm going to drop my feed for a second so you guys can see it without, you can see it in a more clean way. Give me a second. What that is? Well, that's a combustion engine for a car. Let me show it to you again. Yeah, those are the pistons. That's showing the gasoline coming in, the gasoline firing off, the pistons going up and down, and I think turning the crank of the engine. I'm not an engineer, so whenever I go to the dealership like I did yesterday, I have to defer to the mechanics, but I know enough to know what a combustion reaction is and how um, our vehicles use the gasoline. So let's talk really quickly before I read this article about President Biden and his goal for helping us through this energy crisis. Let's take a look at what a combustion reaction is and the players involved. So a combustion reaction is as follows. Uh, what is a combustion reaction? A combustion is a chemical reaction between a fuel and an oxidant that produces an oxidized product. Usually it's a reaction between a hydrocarbon and oxygen to yield carbon dioxide, water, and heat. So you guys can see that there. So anytime you barbecue, throw coals in your grill, light those up, that's a combustion reaction. Anytime you light up your fireplace, you throw planks of wood in there, that's a combustion reaction. Anytime you start your car, that's a combustion reaction. Anytime you take a commercial flight, or if you're in the Air Force in wartime, those are all combustion reactions. So these are, I have a few visuals here. The thumbnail for this stream, that's octane. I'm sure we all know what octane is. This is what, when oil is refined, that's the reactant that our cars need to move us around. Octane. right? So if I recall correctly, the higher, and I'm not talking about the BGS octane scale, but the higher the octane, the more I think the cleaner the preparation of gasoline for your engine. So that's octane. And this says I pulled this off the internet what the engine needs. So it needs isooctane and oxygen, and the carbon dioxide goes out of your tailpipe in addition to water vapor. Now, this is ethanol. We're going to talk about this. The Biden administration is proposing to add ethanol to our fuel to help ease the current energy crisis and the high gas prices that all of us are facing. So let's read about that. That is there's a three-dimensional diagram there of ethanol, and then I can't remember what the name for that chemical structure is, where it's laying flat. I took GChem, I tutored in GChem. I can't think of what the name of that structure is. Give me a second. Chemical structures, organic. I should know this. Diagram types. Structural formula. I should know this. Lewis structure. That is a Lewis structure of ethanol there on your right, the black and white one, and that's a three-dimensional. I'll call it a three-dimensional structure right there on your left. Ethanol. Okay. This article reads as follows. And I thought this was interesting because we're all feeling the pressure at the pump right now due to what's happening in Eastern Europe. Okay. This reads as follows. Biden waiving ethanol rule in bid to lower gasoline prices. So, and this was published Tuesday. With inflation at a 40-year high, President Joe Biden journeyed to corn-rich Iowa. We're going to come back to that on Tuesday to announce a modest step to aim at trimming gasoline prices by about a dime a gallon at a limited number of stations by waiving rules that restrict ethanol blending. There's Uncle Joe right there, looking stylish in his baseball cap. His action reflects the ways Biden is deploying almost every weapon in his bureaucratic arsenal to ease price pressures. Yet the impact appears to be small and uncertain. Inflation has only accelerated in recent months instead of fading as Biden once promised it would after the recovery from the Contagion recession following last year's $1.9 trillion relief package. A government report Tuesday that consumer prices jumped 8.5% in March from a year ago, the worst reading since December 1981, only deepened the political challenge for Biden and fellow Democrats ahead of this year's midterm elections. More than half the increase came from higher gas prices, which spiked in part because of Russia's war in Ukraine, but costs also jumped for housing, food, and other items because we use energy and gasoline to move those products. So everything's going up as a result of the energy costs. Biden called the inflation report Putin's price hike. Your family budget, your ability to fill up your tank, none of it should hinge on whether a dictator declares war and commits genocide a world away, the US president said, referring to Russian President Vladimir Putin. But his remarks at the Poet Biofuels facility in Menlo, west of Des Moines, um, but in his remarks at the Poet Biofuels facility in Menlo, west of Des Moines, Biden acknowledged that the waiver on ethanol mixes was a small step. I'm doing everything within my power by executive orders to bring down the gas price, he said. It's not going to solve all our problems, but it's going to help some people. Most gasoline sold in the United States is blended with 10% ethanol, a biofuel that is currently cheaper than gas. Biden was announcing that the Environmental Protection Agency will issue an emergency waiver to allow widespread sale of 15% of a 15% ethanol blend that is usually prohibited between June 1st and September 15th because of concerns that it adds to smog and high temperatures. Since Biden administration officials said the action will save drivers an average of 10 cents per gallon based on current prices, but at just, senior Biden administration officials said the action will save drivers an average of 10 cents per gallon based on current prices, but at just 2,300 gas stations out of the nation's more than 100,000. The affected stations are mostly in the Midwest and the South, including Texas, according to industry groups. Administration officials said the EPA has determined that the emergency step of allowing more E15 gasoline sales for summer is not likely to have a significant air quality impact. That's despite some environmentalists long arguing that more ethanol in gasoline increases pollution, especially during warmer summer months. The waiver is another effort to help ease global energy markets that have been rocked since Russia invaded Ukraine. Last month, the president announced the U.S. will release 1 million barrels of oil per day from the nation's strategic petroleum reserve over the next 6 months. His administration said that has helped to slightly reduce gas prices lately after they climbed to an average of $4.23 a gallon by the end of March compared to $2.87. $2.87 at the same time a year ago, according to AAA. So that should read $4.23 a gallon versus $2.87 a gallon. Not only is this decision a major win for American drivers and our nation's energy security, it means cleaner options at the pump and a stronger economy. Emily Skor, CEO of the Biofuel Trade Association Group Growth Energy, said in a statement. Homegrown Iowa biofuels provide a quick and clean solution for lowering prices at the pump, and bolstering production would help us become energy independent once again, said Iowa Republican Senator Chuck Grassley. He was among 9 Republican and 7 Democratic senators from Midwestern states who sent Biden a letter last month urging him to allow year-round E15 sales. The trip will be Biden's first as president to Iowa, where his 2020 presidential campaign limped to a 4th-place finish in the state's caucus. He will arrive saddled with sagging approval ratings and high inflation, while his party faces the prospect of big midterm election losses that could cost it control of Congress. How much more is left here? Okay. I'm not going to finish this article. It's below in the description box. But what I will say about this, and I have one more article to read and then I'll stop. I got my car serviced at the dealer yesterday. And as I was checking out, I did ask that question, how increasing the ethanol percentage of gasoline, is that adversely gonna harm my engine? Is is my car equipped to use that type of gasoline? Uh, the messages I got back from Kia were mixed. Um, one of the technicians replied that, well, first of all, I asked them, in terms of managing my money and getting the most bang for my buck, is there a difference between putting in regular unleaded versus plus? Because I normally put plus into my tank. And they said, you know what? It's not that big a deal. You can put unleaded in your tank and your car will run just fine. I have a 2020. And then they also commented that one of the technicians said you can even mix and match, put some unleaded in here, put some plus in here. It's not going to hurt your car to mix and match the different octanes. And then the question of the ethanol came up, and one of the technicians or clerks or whatever you want to call them said that we won't know if this gets implemented full time. We won't really know what the effects on our engines will be, and also ethanol burns faster than octane. So increasing the percentage of the ethanol in our gasoline, that gasoline is going to burn quicker. Okay. So while it might drive down the price at the pump, it in all likelihood would have us going back to the gas station more, because the ethanol burns more quickly and more readily than the octane. So there's a bit of a shell game going on here. So the president is proposing, oh, we'll throw some more ethanol in the gas tank, in the gasoline. That'll bring the price down. But if it burns faster and it makes us go to the pump more, what's the point in doing that? Maybe the better thing is to just keep the blend of the gasoline where it is, and then we just kind of wait this thing out, or come up with other methods to make us energy independent and less reliant on Russian oil. So I thought this article was significant, and I thought that the discussion I had at Kia yesterday was very, very telling. Be careful of what's being proposed and make sure you look into what's being proposed. So we may see this over the summertime, that an increase in the percentage of ethanol, and it might bring down the price at the pump, but it might end up costing as much or more because it's going to burn more readily than the octane will. So just something to keep in mind. I thought this was interesting. This is part of the science and technology world. And also, in terms of where that increased ethanol is going to come from, it's going to come from this corn. So if you have investable dollars, you might think about throwing some money into corn production, or a fund that's involved in corn production. Just a thought. Let's see. T Fitness for You says food prices were up before the war. Pasta, who has a background in agriculture, says, what it do? And he says, do you have a high performance engine? You know what? I don't know. I'm not a car expert. I have a 2020 Kia Forte. It burns our current formulation of gasoline. It burns it pretty slowly. I've been keeping my tank full because I don't want it to go down below half or down to 3/4 empty. But it burns the gasoline pretty slowly. So, but I'm not out driving all over the place either. So there we are. He says corn and sugar. I think you're talking about, oh, where the ethanol will come from. Okay. All right. So, the last article I'm going to read, and then if folks want to come up and say something, Professor Black Ops, he left, and I might do a separate stream on this altogether. But now we're going to go deeper into the technology space and talk about Elon Musk and his quest to buy Twitter. This is a technology discussion. It's also a political one. I'm going to try to stay away from the political side here, but there's a technology component that me and Keep It Techie talked about months ago. And I'm going to talk about what that is. So apparently the employees at Twitter are lamenting or they're dreading Elon Musk purchasing Twitter. And I think a question is, one of the criticisms of the technology companies is that instead of just running their companies from a technology aspect, one concern is that um, big tech is also involved in political dogma and controlling what the population sees and thinks. So they're highly involved in censorship and controlling the dissemination of information. So they're not just running their companies, their algorithms, their gadgets. They're also minding what we see and think and controlling what we see and read and think. And the argument could be made, and again, I just want to focus on the technology aspects, but the argument could be made that that happened in the last major election. I will leave that there, but I think that's kind of at the center of all this. So let me read this article. Okay. True Fitness says for 20 years, they said fracking would make America energy independent from Saudi Arabia. Anti-frackers said the United States companies are hoarding to export fracked fuel. Pasta says fact checkers are something that shocked me. Okay. This is entitled Twitter counters Elon Musk's takeover bid with a poison pill. Okay, there's a lot of news about this right now, this whole poison pill thing. Twitter unveiled its counterattack against Elon Musk on Friday, using a strategy invented to repel corporate raiders in an attempt to block a takeover bid by the world's richest person. The strategy, known as a poison pill, would flood the market with new shares if Mr. Musk or any other individual or group working together bought 15% or more of Twitter's shares. That would immediately reduce Mr. Musk's stake and make it significantly more difficult to buy a sizable portion of the company. Mr. Musk currently owns more than 9% of the company's stock. The goal is to force anyone trying to acquire the company to negotiate directly with the board. Investors rarely try to break through a poison pill threshold. According to securities experts, one said it would be financially ruinous even for him, but Mr. Musk rarely abides by precedent. Twitter said the mechanism would not stop the company from holding talks about a sale with any potential buyer and would give it more time to negotiate a deal that offers a sufficient premium. Sorry about that, guys. I have some guests, some four-legged guests who are sensitive to the sounds of fire trucks and emergency vehicles. So we just had a little howling session here. Anyway, Crystal Tootle, who was in the Johnson C. Smith University Department of Natural Sciences with me back in the late 90s, says 88 gas has been at some gas stations for a while here, and you want to be careful that it doesn't harm your engine. Yeah, I think that's the concern. Putting different formulations or unfamiliar formulations of gas in your tank, what's it going to do to your engine long term? I don't want to ruin my engine during this crisis. Okay. Twitter. Let's see. The pill does not mean. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. The pill does not mean that the company is going to be independent forever, said Drew Pascarella, a senior lecturer of finance at Cornell University. It just means that they can effectively fend off Elon. Mr. Musk, who is worth more than $250 billion and is the chief executive of Tesla and SpaceX, announced his intention to acquire the social media service on Thursday, making public an unsolicited bid worth more than $40 billion. In an interview that day, he took issue with Twitter's moderation policies, calling Twitter the de facto town square and saying that it's really important that people have the reality and the perception that they are able to speak freely within the bounds of the law. That's the issue at the center of all this, everyone. He also said he had a plan B if the board rejected his offer, though he did not share it. Analysts have said that Mr. Musk's bid, which offers significantly more per share than the current stock price, but is well below its peak last year, may undervalue the company. They have also raised concerns about Mr. Musk's ability to cobble together the financing. If the board negotiated a deal with Mr. Musk, it could include a breakup fee, which could make Mr. Musk pay a sizable penalty if the deal falls apart. That might assuage concerns about his volatile nature getting in the way of closing a deal, some securities experts said. Twitter attempted to wrangle Mr. Musk in recent weeks as he snapped up its shares. Last week, Twitter offered Mr. Musk a board seat, but he soured on the arrangement when it became clear that he would no longer be able to freely criticize the company. He rejected the role on Saturday and informed Twitter on Wednesday evening of his acquisition plans. Twitter said in a statement that its poison pill plan, which will remain in effect until April of next year, is similar to other plans adopted by publicly held companies in comparable circumstances. The company's board, which includes Jack Dorsey, a co-founder of Twitter who was friendly with Mr. Musk, voted unanimously to approve the plan. Mr. Musk still has other options, like challenging the poison pill in court. That would be unlikely to be successful, said Edward Rock, a professor of corporate governance at the New York University School of Law. The first question will be, does this bid pose a threat to Twitter and shareholders? And there are lots and lots of arguments they can make that it does pose a threat, Mr. Rock said. There are doubts about how serious Mr. Musk's bid is, given the scant details about its financing. And Mr. Musk has already raised red flags with public statements and his filings pertaining to the offer. Companies are often wary of using poison pills because they do not want to be seen as unfriendly to shareholders. Even so, some critics of the practice, like the influential advisory group Institutional Shareholder Services, have indicated that they are open to the tactic in certain circumstances. Twitter's other top shareholders, according to FactSet, include the investment giant Vanguard Group, The largest with more than 10%, Morgan Stanley Investment Management with 8%, and BlackRock Fund Advisors with about 4.5%. Okay, this is almost over. ARK Investment Management, led by Cathie Wood, a star of the Reddit investing company, who was previously bet on Mr. Musk, has about 2%, as does Mr. Dorsey. Mr. Musk seemed to be girding for a protracted filing. When he notified the board of his bid on Wednesday, he said it was his best and final offer, and that he would reconsider my position as a shareholder if it was rejected. But in an interview at a TED conference on Thursday, he acknowledged that he does not like to lose. And later in the day, he took to his favorite social media platform, taking Twitter private at $54 a share should be up to the shareholders, not the board, he tweeted alongside a yes/no poll. Mr. Musk's bare bones offer left open significant questions. Mr. Musk has hired Morgan Stanley to advise on the bid, although the investment bank is not known for financing large-scale deals on its own. In Twitter, shareholders seemed wary. Twitter stock fell almost 2% on Thursday, closing at $45, significantly below Mr. Musk's offer. Stock markets in the United States were closed Friday for the Good Friday holiday. Mr. Musk argued that taking Twitter private would allow more free speech to flow on the platform. My strong intuitive sense is that having a public platform that is maximally trusted and broadly inclusive is extremely important for the future of civilization, he said during the TED interview. He also insisted that the algorithm, this is what's I think is important here. He also insisted that the algorithm Twitter uses to rank its content, deciding what hundreds of millions of users see on the service every day, should be public for users to audit. Mr. Musk's concerns are shared by many executives at Twitter, who have also pressed for more transparency about its algorithms. The company has also published internal research about bias in its algorithms and funded an effort to create an open, transparent standard for social media services. But Twitter balked at Mr. Musk's hardball tactics. After a Thursday morning board meeting, the company began exploring options to block Mr. Musk, including the poison pill and the possibility of courting another buyer. During an all-hands meeting on Thursday, Twitter's chief executive, Parag Agrawal, sought to reassure employees about the potential shakeup. Although he declined to share details about the board's plans, he encouraged employees to stay focused and not allow themselves to be distracted by Mr. Musk. All right. So, guys, I'm done reading. I want to thank everyone who hung on through all of my reading. But, when this news broke that he wanted to buy Twitter, I did not understand what all the hoopla was about. But it's basically this. Twitter apparently uses an algorithm, much the same way Google does. I don't know if Facebook does. I don't know if all of the social media platforms use an algorithm per se. Bear with me for a second here. It's the wrong folder. I don't know. Well, here's our resident expert, engineering cannabis. Let me just show my visual. I'm gonna drop the link. Engineering Cannabis. I don't know if the other platforms like Facebook. Well, we know YouTube uses an algorithm. We know that Twitter uses an algorithm, and I think LinkedIn uses an algorithm. They won't let you post certain things to LinkedIn. I remember I tried to post something a couple of years ago. It was kind of it was kind of nuclear. It's the C word that some people of color are using to call each other. It's the C word many people of color are using on each other today. It's actually an animal, a wild animal. But LinkedIn wouldn't let me post it, and I said, okay, they're blocking this from me posting it, probably because I'm using this word. But and maybe Reddit does too, but apparently Twitter has an algorithm, and I think that's what we saw in the last election, the last major presidential election. If you're on Twitter, you are noticing that there was censorship, and there were certain things that they weren't being allowed. There were certain things people weren't being allowed to post on Twitter. So they were keeping certain information down and out. And I noticed that when you would post an article, they implemented something that said, "Are you sure you want to retweet this without reading it first?" So Twitter was highly policing what people were seeing and what people were exposed to during the last election. So what Elon Musk wants to do, engineering cannabis, I'm gonna drop the link in a minute. And during the week, I normally don't watch the mainstream news channels, but I just want to see what was going on in the world in terms of the Russia Ukraine thing and also inflation. And someone mentioned the word open source. So if you look back into my catalog, me and Keep It Techie, we did a stream on open source technology. So Elon and others in his camp who want more free speech, they want to make sure that the Twitter algorithm is open source. So I think what that would involve is multiple people being able to come in and multiple people coming in and making sure that the algorithm is unbiased and that it's not censoring people and it's not censoring information. For the people who weren't on social media, like a lot of the boomers, like my parents who are not privy to this stuff, see, I don't want to make this political, but they think that the current president, well, let me make this a little more nebulous. It's possible the current president won just off of his merits, and it's possible that other entities contributed to his winning. Other entities censored certain people. Other entities made sure that the general public did not see certain bits of information. And that's what this is all about. But at the heart of it, it's all the technology stuff we've been talking about here with engineering cannabis and Keep It Techie and Professor Black Ops. We're talking about algorithms. We're talking about machine learning. We're talking about whether or not things are open source. Engineering cannabis, if you're there, or if anyone wants to come up for a few minutes to react to any of this, I'm dropping the link right now. But engineering cannabis says all social media use algorithms for safety, sales, and marketing. They use it to streamline content. Okay. He also says all social media utilizes a machine learning algorithm. Well, there you are. So, you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, you think, okay, this thing got taken down, this thing got removed, this thing was up and then it was taken down. Are there people on the other side sitting and watching 24/7? about what goes up on the platform, it's probably an algorithm, a machine looking and saying, okay, we can't let this through. We can't let this through. We can't let this go up. So that's what's at the center of Elon Musk's attempt to purchase Twitter from my perspective. And then there's a philosophical question. Should any and everything be allowed on social media? Should posts and tweets and videos be policed? Maybe everything shouldn't be allowed through. Maybe everything shouldn't be allowed up. But if it's factual, I'm thinking if it's factual, if it's legitimate, if it did happen, maybe things should be allowed up. I definitely believe in free speech. I mean, I don't believe in abusive speech. I don't believe in slandering people. I don't believe in harming people or influencing people to harm other people. But if it's true information, if it's true history, if it's true facts, then the common man or woman should be able to see that and make the decision for themselves. Engineering Cannabis says, the fear is not the algorithm. The fear is what data and what variables are being fed to the algorithm that makes the decision. Okay. Well, I will defer to you, Engineering Cannabis. But I think it all doesn't all go back to what's going to influence the algorithm to police what people have to say. I think that's it, right? It's what. Well, let's get it from the horse's mouth. Engineering Cannabis.
Hey,
Welcome back.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Um, the the issue with the Twitter, it's not the algorithm they're looking for. It's the data and the variables that are being fed to the algorithms, and that's what they're basically trying to basically monitor. Because again, the algorithms are just mathematical equations, but the data and the variables that the algorithms makes decision on, that's what they want to understand. So, for instance, if they want to sanction issues with maybe something dealing with Republican issues, what
You're breaking up.
basically
Okay, I just heard that. Okay, we can't hear you now. Engineering Cannabis, you still there? Engineering Cannabis? You still listening? You still with us? Okay. Well, what he just said was it's not the algorithm, and I'm not a tech guy, but the algorithm, any algorithm, is simply a mathematical equation. But it's the data sets being given to the algorithm that are in question.
repeat that again.
Okay, no, I was just repeating which you shared, which was that it's not the algorithm per se; it's the information being given to the algorithm that's in question. All right. Well, while we wait for him, everyone, I don't have a super chat over here, but if anyone wants to make a donation via Cash App or PayPal, that information is here. Okay, we lost Engineering Cannabis. I'm gonna just go for a few more minutes and then I will stop the stream. But yeah, when I heard someone on the news say make it open source, my antenna went straight up because me and Keep It Techie talked about that. Open source. I think that means that And if engineering cannabis comes back, I'll ask him about the significance of making the Twitter algorithm open source. I think that means that multiple people can look at it and adjust it and just make sure that it's unbiased. But I think that at the center of all this is who should engineering cannabis?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm having connection issues. But did you hear all of the basically what I talked about variables and data itself?
I think so.
Okay.
So it's not the algorithm per se. It's what data and
It's
variables go into
what
it.
data and what variables are basically asked from the algorithms to basically decipher or filter out.
Okay.
So they want to monitor it. So it's not the algorithm can be put in open source, and anybody can do an algorithm and create one. But the goal is what are we feeding that algorithm to make that decision, and that's what Elon Musk wants to be. That's why YouTube and everybody they can give you an algorithm, but the question is what are they feeding the algorithm to make that decision.
Okay, you're breaking up a little bit. The question is, what are you feeding the algorithm?
If now we know these variables, are we feeding variables based on maybe color,
Okay, you're breaking up.
maybe are you that doesn't they don't want to come out at this point.
Okay, I just
So,
caught the last part. You said they don't want it to come out at this point.
they don't want it because again, there's a lot of litigation that might come out of it. If my algorithm comes out and says the algorithm, what we fed the algorithm is, we say the data we feed the algorithm are we want people who mention certain key topics or key phrases, or who are male or who are female, or certain all these variables. If it comes out and we see all the data being fed it, there's a lot of bias in it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the problem is. If we look at it and say, okay, there's a lot of bias in this, your algorithm has so much bias that's excluding maybe people of color, or is doing something with people with Republican topics or something like that, then there's a problem at that point. There's a lot of litigation that might come up and say, hey, we can actually sue you based on all the information and all this from the algorithm. That's why you never see any company coming out and giving you their algorithms and giving you what variables and all that. That's why I proposed that if you are gonna create an algorithm that's gonna affect the public, why not put it on a blockchain? So that now we can see what kind of data and all that you're feeding your algorithm, and then we can make that judgment and see the biases that come out of it. But that's why
Mm-hmm.
no company wants to do that, because we can actually see what biases will occur when we see that data, and no company wants to go through that and litigations and all that. You will never see any company doing that.
So you're saying that Twitter is not unique.
Twitter is way not unique. YouTube, every company that utilizes a machine learning algorithm, they know there's a general bias in there. And the problem is, if you see that bias and we make, again, if I go in and say, okay, I want to see the data you feed in your algorithm, and I see it, and I said, based on this data, there's a lot of bias in terms of people of color, all that. These your algorithms are making decisions that are mostly following like a human bias, right? And then you can then see the litigation issues that can come out of it. A lot of lawsuits, a lot of issues, because we see it even on YouTube. We see it that like content of color and all that. There are biases in there. So we see it, but we can't prove it because the algorithm is not shown. The data is not shown. But if it is at this point, a lot of litigations will come up, a lot of lawsuits in every social media company, in any company that basically utilizes machine learning algorithm, because the data being fed to it can produce a lot of biases.
Mm-hmm.
So again, nobody wants to do it, and nobody wants to risk that much litigation itself.
Okay. And you stated that all the social media platforms use some form of machine learning.
Every company, even Facebook, and there've been a lot of
Oh man, we just lost you right there.
look at Netflix, you can see numerous documentaries showing ethical reasons why the algorithms have problems in it. There are a lot of documentaries in YouTube, Netflix. You can look at it, and there's a lot of problems with the way those algorithms and the way the data is being fed to those algorithms. So there's a problem. That's why when I talked about the law system and the algorithms they use for it is the same problem. There's
Okay. All right. Well, engineering cannabis, we lost you again. Okay. So I think the take home is that social media is not all fun and games. It's, we're using this stuff, posting our pictures, posting our lives, all kinds of things. But there are calculations and algorithms underneath all of this that are dictating what's acceptable to put there and what's not. And so I think that's where the whole free speech comes in, because in this instance, okay, engineering cannabis, yeah, I'm going to wrap up in a few minutes. But in this instance, in the last election cycle, regardless of which side you were on, I think the undergirding, the underlying question is: should there be free speech? And are the algorithms being fed data that are suppressing certain people and suppressing certain messages and suppressing certain bits of information that that individuals behind a curtain don't want everyone else to know? And that's when you think about a national election, you think about who the leader of the free world is going to be, or when you think about global energy policy, when you think about global wars, when you think about uh, global agriculture, the environment, this is very, very significant. Who's pushing the buttons? Who's controlling what information gets out? And is free speech being suppressed? Should everybody have free speech? Well, you, the audience, you decide. Crystal Tootle says, great information. They should be required to show the algorithm to clear the discrepancies. Yeah. Well, let's see if let's see if Elon actually gets to make this purchase. Engineering Cannabis says, sorry, bad connection issues. I'm driving. All right, Engineering Cannabis. Yeah, maybe we could have a longer discussion about this at some point. I slipped this article in at the end. I covered a bunch of different things today. The current contagion, the world event. We did some aerospace. We did energy. And here we did social media, algorithms, and technology. So with that, I think I am going to wrap this stream up, and I'm going to relax a little bit. If I'm feeling brave, if I'm feeling daring, I will do another stream over on my original channel, though I think I might just relax for the rest of your day, the rest of my day. I'm sorry. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for those of you who came in. Thank you for those of you who liked the stream. Thank you for those of you who watched and listened to me read for a little while. When you do a stream, the numbers go up and down. I know there are multiple YouTube content creators going on live right now, and these are science topics, and science topics aren't always the most popular compared to some of the more juicier things happening in society. So if you haven't, please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Please share. If you want to throw something in the tip jar, that information is here and it's also in the description box below. Once again, if you celebrate it, happy Easter, everyone. Be safe out there. And as always, remember, let me plug my newsletter one more time. Please consider joining the Big Words LLC Newsletter. In addition to being a YouTube content creator, I am also a writer with 2 blogs and a book project on the way. There's a greeting there. This link is in the description box, and there's a subscribe button there. You just click that and add your email address, and it goes to my collection of email addresses, which is growing slowly but steadily. All right, now I'm done. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. As always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Let me know if you have any questions or suggestions for things you want to hear about, science topics, technology topics, any questions about what I talked about today, or any questions about content I've generated in the past. So let me know if you have any questions. Questions are a critical component of science, no matter which part that you're in. So I will talk to you later. All right. Bye-bye.